Hello everyone, I want to take this time to just introduce myself. My name is Mrs. Nina Kearney and I'll be assisting with the presentation this afternoon, this evening. And if you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy and more than welcomed, more than happy to help you with those questions. Tara?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Jackson, and Nana and I work together on the ELA specialist team. So we're in the content area of reading, writing, and anything that concerns English language arts. We're so happy that you were able to join us this evening, and we are really excited about the information and content that we have to share with you tonight.
Alrighty, let's transition into our presentation. All right, families. We're going to begin our third grade promotion presentation and is presented once again by Academic Services. Once again, my name is Nina Kearney, K-5 ELA Specialist, and I'm going to take you through the key components of what promotion looks like in third grade. Let's get started. Retention in grade 3. The state statute that began in 2003 school year states that students with a reading deficiency that is not remediated by the end of grade 3, as demonstrated by scoring a level 2 or above on statewide assessments in reading for grade 3, the student must be retained. And there are safety nets in place that will help students in grade 3 reach mastery. Those opportunities for promotion to 4th grade. While this may seem final if the student does not make that level 2 on the FSA ELA portion, we're going to review some good cause exemptions that your student may qualify for. One of the key good cause exemptions is the portfolio, and we'll dig more into that shortly. Good cause exemption, ELL, and these are our English language learners. Our English language learners with a proficient are proficient students who have had less than 2 years of instruction in English for speaking of other languages programs based on the initial date of entry into a school into the United States. Although students are not retained if they do not score level 2 or higher, there are opportunities for our ELLs to be promoted. These opportunities, once again, are called our good cause exemptions. Our next good cause exemption is for our ESC students. Students with disabilities who have an IEP may qualify for promotion in one of 2 ways. The first option is for students who receive instruction using alternative standards. And this exemption reads number 2, students with disabilities whose individual education plan indicates that participation in the statewide assessment program is not appropriate, consent with the requirements of section 1008.212. Our next good cause exemption, number 5. The second one is for students who receive instruction based on our regular grade level standards and have been previously retained. Let's take a look closely at option 5. Students with disabilities who take the statewide assessment, standardized assessment with our English language arts, who have an individual education plan or a section 504 plan that reflects that the student has received intensive instruction in reading or English language arts for more than 2 years, but still demonstrates a deficiency and was previously retained in kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, or grade 3. Please note, parents and families, if a student has been previously retained, this calls for good cause exemption. And I want to slow down and make sure that we understand what good cause exemption means. A good cause exemption is where the student meets a specific criteria and they can be promoted. I really want you guys to note this term, good cause exemptions, when you're meeting with your teacher, your student teacher, that you can mention this phrase, this term, and you can inquire in case they are in danger of not meeting a level 2 on the FSA assessment. Let's take a look at some more good cause exemptions. Previous retention. I just touched on this a little bit. Students without an IEP, that's that individual education plan, and have been previously retained may also qualify for good cause. Let's look closely at it. Students who have received intensive reading intervention for 2 or more years, but still demonstrate a deficiency in reading, and who were previously retained in kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and even grade 3 for a total of 2 years. A student may not be retained more than once in 3rd grade. That means if your student is a repeater for 3rd grade, they already qualify for good cause exemption. Let's think about how our students have performed in the previous years. Have they been retained? Is a reflection question I really want you guys to think about, because if they have, your student may qualify for this good cause exemption that will promote them to 4th grade. Let's keep going because there's more. Good cause exemption. Alternative assessments. This is big time, guys. Take out that pen, take out that paper, and jot down this information. While the FSA will largely determine promotion, I'll say that again. The FSA will largely determine promotion. There are other safety net assessments to put in place by our district. Our 2 assessments or our 3 assessments include the STAR assessment. The STAR assessment is linked to your student's FRECL blended learning platform. The STAR assessment is administered in the beginning of the school year, the middle of the school year, and the end. And that's that spring administration. By the end of the year, 3rd graders who score in the 50th percentile on that STAR assessment has met good cause exemption, qualifying for promotion to 3rd grade. Another good cause exemption is Achieve 3000. Achieve 3000 is another reading-based program that our students use during their ELA block. Achieve 3000 is also administered 3 times a year with level sets monthly. The Achieve diagnostic that we're looking for is our spring session. Students who score a 645 Lexile in that spring session of that Achieve 3000 has met their promotion or good cause exemption. So I really want to just let you guys know, as your students take their monthly Achieve lessons, and when they are working on it at home, in school, promote good reader habits while they're on Achieve 3000. Achieve 3000 will not only help them with promotion, but it'll help them with their overall reading ability and comprehension of the text. Let's take a look at another alternative assessment for 3rd grade. And that's our NWEA MAP assessment. This is one of the last assessments given if the student does not meet the STAR, if the student does not meet Achieve, and if the student does not meet FSA. The last assessment is the NWEA MAP, and that is given 1 time a year as a safety net, and that is administered in spring. Students must score in the 50th percentile of that assessment. So the assessment good causes are the FSA, STAR assessment, Achieve 3000, and the NWEA MAP assessment. We really want to provide our students multiple opportunities of promotion. Through these assessments, your students can demonstrate mastery of the English Language Arts standards for Florida. And we're not done just yet. Let's take a look at the most common good cause exemption that we use in 3rd grade here in Duval. Good cause exemption, a portfolio. The portfolio is used across the district and is typically started early in the school year based on early assessment data. Our teachers maintain this portfolio throughout the school year of the standards taught and remediated. Good cause exemption 4 reads, a student who demonstrates through a student portfolio that he or she is performing at least a level 2 on statewide assessments in our English Language Arts assessment, and that's our FSA. The portfolio is equivalent to showing mastery, I'm going to say satisfactory, equivalent to a level 2 on FSA. And I want you to ask your student, have they started taking any assessments in small group based on their standards aligned work that they're doing in the ELA block? This is an indicator that they have begun a portfolio. So the teacher is being proactive in ensuring that they have this safety net in place. And this is a kudos to the teacher. They're looking out for that student. Let's keep going. And also, if they do have a portfolio, the teacher probably have notified you. But if not, notification is coming. The safety net is in place. Let's keep going talking about this portfolio opportunity. Portfolio opportunities. Any student who successfully completes the portfolio will be promoted. Successful completion of the portfolio, once again, counts as promotion. If your student has been identified based on their STAR assessment, they will receive a portfolio. And once again, that will be information that you can gather from their ELA teacher. Let's take a look closely at the quotes here. Every retained 3rd grade student who may qualify for a promotion for good cause must have the opportunity to have a portfolio. And this is a part of our student progression plan. And also it is their right to show mastery in another form than just the FSA or standardized assessment. The second quote reads, students who demonstrate the required reading level through a student portfolio can be granted good cause exemption and be promoted to the 4th grade. Once again, parents and families, the portfolio opportunity is one of the most common ways that teachers try to catch students in danger of retention. I would definitely inquire if this has begun. A portfolio defined. Let's get a solid understanding of a portfolio. A student portfolio contains a systematic collection of evidence used by the teacher to monitor the student's academic growth over a period of time. This systematic collection of evidence is presented to the district, to Duval County Schools, as evidence that your student has shown mastery equivalent to a level 2 for the FSA to meet promotion. So what does a portfolio, the items, what does it look like? Let's take a little look at that. The portfolio is organized. We organize it by the standards. For our grade 3 English Language Arts assessment, each standard, there must be at least 3 examples of mastery as demonstrated by a grade of 70% or above. That's 70% or above that the student must score on these quick standard-based assessments. So when you're talking with your student, let's encourage them to try their best, use the strategies that the teacher has taught them, and to aim for 70% or above on their portfolio assessments. They can do it. We believe in them. The portfolio contents. The portfolio consists of 8 literary reading standards, that's reading for literature, stories, poems, plays, and 9 informational reading standards. That's going to be our informational biographies, our science-related topics, topic-specific texts that we find in our real world. There's going to be 9 standards on that. And our 2 language standards where students will show grammar proficiency for 3rd grade. And that's equivalent to 54 past assessments for a complete and eligible portfolio. Let's talk about how I got that 54 past assessments. For each standard, a student must have 3 past assessments. For example, I recall standard RL 2.4 for 3rd grade. Standard RL 2.4 is context clues for words and phrases in a literary text. For standard RL 2.4, students must have passed 3 assessments for that one standard, and so forth for the other 7 standards. So each standard individually, the student must pass 3 quizzes, and that's where we get the total of 54 past assessments for eligible portfolio. And those are our good cause exemptions for 3rd grade. Our next topic, we're going to talk about some resources that you can use to ensure that your student is preparing for the assessments that they need or the portfolio for promotion to 4th grade.
Thank you, Naina. Naina has gone over some really important information about portfolios. I do want to make sure to tell you that the portfolios and the other examples of good cause exemption are extremely important. The portfolio in particular, which like Naina said, is like our biggest one that we usually see for students. That portfolio is considered their FSA. Basically, it's just over time, and it has to be held with the greatest of fidelity because it is so important. And one of the things a lot of parents usually ask me, they'll ask me, well, why why do they have to do a portfolio? Why is it at grade 3? Lots of questions about that. Well, because research has been clear about the fact that if students are not moving along with literacy in a basic way by 3rd grade, that they continue to struggle and face barriers as they progress on in their years and on into adulthood. And so what we try to do is catch them and help them out before they get too far along in their academic careers and of course their adult lives. So I just wanted to let you know that this is why 3rd grade is held to that degree. Okay, so what we want to do now is we've described the good cause exemptions and we've described what happens with the portfolio and how that's the equivalent to FSA. Now we want to give you some tools that you can use with your student. We do know that many students will score to level 2 or higher. However, there are some students who will need just that little extra push. They will need a little extra from their teacher, and they will also need a little extra from their families, whether that's their parents or guardian, or whether that's other people in your tribe, if you will, or the community that help out. So we wanted to share some of these resources with you and with the hopes that you will visit them, use them, and also share them. Share them with family, friends, If your student attends any kind of after-school program, especially if it's not connected with DCPS, share these resources with them because they can be used not only for your student, but they could be used, many of them, with any student. And so we want to make sure we know that my granddaughter, she's 4, and she said this the other day. She said, sharing is caring. And so out of the mouths of babes, sharing is caring. So make sure you share these amazing resources so that we get the word out and we help all of our students be successful in whatever endeavors they have. So this first one that you see on the screen is an app. And this is the Florida Standards app. If you're not logged in on your cell phone, you may want to go ahead and go to your app store and search Florida CCR Standards. And then you should see this icon, this yellow square with the shape of our state of Florida in it. This particular app is really great because it has the standards for all the grade levels. So what you would do when you log in, you would choose the content, which would be ELA language arts, or it might say reading language arts. And then you would go ahead and choose the grade level, which in this case would be 3rd grade. And if you have students in other grade levels, you could choose that grade level. Also, other content areas are located in this app. For example, math, history, science, social studies, things like that. So other content areas. So you just choose the content area and the grade level you're looking for, and then you can actually look at the standards. If you are on your phone and you aren't able to go to the App Store at this time, you might want to jot this resource down on a piece of paper so that you can go search for it when when your cell phone is available. You can also download this app to tablets as well. The next resource I want to share with you on this screen, you're actually going to see 2 resources. So the first resource is called CPalms, and CPalms is also another Florida app that is available on Android as well as the iStore, iTunes or iStore. I have Android, so I'm not sure. I know they changed it, but this particular app, I really personally like this particular app. I go to this one quite a bit. They also have a website, which is just cpalms.com. On this website, this is a Florida app, and so in this app, they have our current standards, which are the Florida standards, but they also have our new standards that are coming, which they're called the Florida BEST. BEST, it's an acronym, standards. So you will see both in this app. And so that's why I like this one, because I can see the standards we're working on now, but I can also see the standards that we'll be going to next year. Great. Okay, and the other website I want to share with you. Now, this is actually a website, the other one. CPalms is an app, so you might want to write that down if you can't go to your app store and download it. But I want to share with you a website. This website is called FCRR, and as you see on your screen, that's an acronym as well. It stands for the Florida Center for Reading Research. And so at this time, I'm going to ask Nana if she could maneuver to this website for me, fcrr.org. Nana, if you could maneuver to the website, I'm going to let them see
Yes, ma'am, I can absolutely.
how to maneuver in this website and how to get to a really cool resource.
Okay. All right, guys, here we go. All right, I'm going to ask that infamous question. Can you see my screen?
I could see it on my end.
Thank you. All right, here we go. So looking at FCRR, this is our homepage, and where we really want to start is FCRR Student Center Activities. And when I come to Student Center Activities, I see that I get all this information for our pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth, and fifth. So I want to go ahead and click on second and third grade resources for my student. And once I come to this page for second and third grade, I find resources for phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. All these resources help build my student up to comprehension, which is what they pretty much do in third grade, and show their understanding. If kids need help with sounds, segmenting, putting those sounds together, and then forming letters, I will select phonemic awareness. Spelling words, fluency, reading and at a rate, prosody with expression, understanding the meaning of words with vocabulary, and then we have our text-dependent, text-based questions. Let's look at some vocabulary activities. Underneath vocabulary, I find word knowledge. Oh, bingo. Who doesn't like the contraction bingo or just bingo period? Contraction bingo can be played on family night. We have the game spin sort, opposite subtract, homophone hunt, synonym antonym connection. Let's take a look at synonyms and antonyms. We know synonyms are the similar, antonyms are the opposite. And understanding synonyms and antonyms helps us understand word meaning and overall the text. And look at this, families. All the materials are here for you. You have the objective of the game, the materials you needed, the activity, and it even shows you how to set the game up. Now, if your student is a high flyer and they're going through this game, there's an extension on what you can do with this synonym and antonym game. I'm just gonna keep scrolling, and here are our cards. Synonym, antonym, word, and then it gives us, here they are. It gives us the words. And there we have it. Vocabulary. Oh, for fluency. Fluency is the rate that our readers read with comprehension. We want to make sure that they're reading accurately and they're understanding what they read. So fluency is a big part of building their stamina when they are reading text. No matter how big, how small, we want to make sure that our readers are pushing towards fluency. And look at these wonderful resources that we have. One of my favorites that I used when I was in the classroom was Chunk King. Chunk King teaches the students how to chunk the text for comprehension. Once again, families, we have our objective, our materials, the activity steps, what it looks like, and there's a timer. There's that stamina piece because we want our readers reading at a steady rate where they're able to understand, and also the extension and adaptations of the game. FCRR, if you haven't jotted it down already, is a wonderful resource for you guys to use at home. You will have to print these resources out and maybe cut out the cards that go with it. But once it's printed and cut out, you can play this once again on family game night. Let's go back to our presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Nana, for maneuvering in FCRR. So families, I hope you can see that there's a wealth of information in FCRR. I cannot stress enough that in FCRR, the way the activities are grouped is by skill. And so skills help our students to connect their thinking with the comprehension. And so that's why those skills are so important. The skills are like different pieces to the puzzle. And when you put all those pieces together, you get a complete picture. And so you want your student to practice in the skills, of course, they're weakest in, but however, if they also practice other skills, that will just sharpen all of their skills kind of all together. Like I said, it's kind of like putting the pieces to a puzzle all together, and then you get a whole complete picture. For some reason, Nana, the PowerPoint Stop sharing. I'm going to go back to it. Sorry for the jumping in and out, but we thought it was important to go ahead and just share with you live what you can find. Like we already stated, FCRR is a website that you can maneuver to. You can actually download resources that you choose, and you can use them at home with your student. And they're free to everyone, not just even Florida. They're free literally to anyone. So even if you know families in other states and they feel like the activity would benefit, let's say you have family members, nieces, nephews, anything like that in other states, and the family felt like that would benefit, they can actually use it. It's just open to the public. More about how you can help at home in addition to these particular apps and web resources we've shown you. Of course, reading to your student will always, always, always be powerful. It's a powerful tool that families and communities can use to help any student, any reader. Sight words and understanding how phonics works, which just means breaking down the sounds and words and putting them together to make a meaningful word, and then making sentences. And when you put that all together to make meaning, that's what we call reading. Reading is making meaning, but they have to have all the pieces. So sight words, and then reading at home, and then helping your student understand unknown words. So that has a lot to do with vocabulary, and then connecting that with comprehension. So they see a word, they really don't know what that word is. And a powerful tool is helping them to break that word down into its parts and then blending that word together to hopefully make a word that they've heard before so that they can make meaning out of that word, so they can make sense of it. Let's look at some of the ways to help students with just that, reading at home. Why do we read at home? It's because when you increase the volume of reading at home, you increase a student's word power. The more a student reads, the more words they know. The more words they know, the more they comprehend what they're reading. So not only do we want students to read either for a certain number of minutes a day, there's a connection between reading a certain number of minutes and increased comprehension, but there's also a connection in the type of material students read. For example, some students, really like, let's say, I don't know, the Captain Underpants. Let's just throw him out there. And that's great. That's fiction. It's fantasy. It's interesting to students. However, if that's all they read, they won't be what we would call a well-rounded reader. So they need to read other things as well. Think other things that interest them. Maybe the student is very interested in certain reptiles. So they might want to read about reptiles or snakes or amphibians or any topic really, but they might want to read informational text and not just literary text. They might read magazines, comic books, all kinds of material. So helping a student read daily is very helpful. Also helping a student read a variety of material and not just the same thing all the time. As you see on the screen, books, magazines, and newspapers. Nana, could you talk a little bit about this bookmark that is so amazing?
Absolutely, Tara. So let's talk about book talks. Book talks is when we have that text in front of us and we're sitting around with our readers and we're having thorough discussion about what is taking place in the text. We can have stopping points. Those pausing points are some of the key parts that guide our students to true comprehension. We want to make sure that, for example, literary text, we are talking before we read, while we read, and after we read. That way, we are guiding our students' thinking through predicting, questioning, and summarizing the text. And guess what? They retain that information better. So now they have read it with skill and strategy, and they have the content knowledge from that text. And when our students are able to effectively summarize through conversation, they can transfer the summarizing of a text into their work, into their writing. Looking at the informational text, I love information. Tara, when you were saying kids have an interest in different topics, I recall a student I had, he loved sharks, and he would read anything sharks, anything about sharks, anything about the deep sea. And that's when we had book talks within the text, beyond the text, and about the text. We look closely at the text features. I ask questions, for example, like what information from this book is most important to you? Beyond the text, I had them make connections, infer, with questions from this bookmark like, how did you change your ideas after reading this book? And also about the text. I'm talking specifically details in the text. And with informational text is heavy. Informational text gives us labels and chapters and I want to say sections and headings and all those text features that guide our student understanding. So about the text, we want to look closely at the causes, the outcomes of the informational text. So when we are reading with our students, make sure you have those pausing points before, during, and after. And with informational text, ask questions specifically about the text and even have them make connections or make an inference, make a smart guess about what they already know and what the text is showing them. All right, what do I know? What do I do when my child doesn't know a word? Oh, that's a good one. Context clues will be our best friend when we don't know a word. And I'm certain that these are the strategies that your teachers are teaching your students in the classroom. When I come across a word that I don't know, what do? We don't give up, we don't stop. Just like the image on the screen, we think, we use clues in the text to figure it out. Let's take a look at some of those clues. Thinking about meaning, and that's the context clues. Encourage readers to think about what they already know. After all, reading equals thinking. What do you already know about the topic? What do you know about characters? That's going to guide their reading. When students are able to take what they already know, apply it to the text, they can break down word meaning, and our overarching goal is their comprehension. I love the second bullet. The second bullet that's presented on the screen, it is a correction, a clarifying strategy. And it says, you read, and you say the word. Does that make sense? That's a clarifying question that I ask students all the time. And to add to that, I always ask my readers the big three. Does it look right? Does it sound right? And does it make sense? When you ask your kids, I'm going to say that again, does it look right? Does it sound right? And does it make sense? They will be able to clarify and problem solve in their mind and then ultimately get that word correct. Looking at the pictures, families, we know that looking at the pictures is a great way to decode, infer what the text is saying. Think about what is happening in the story, going back to the beginning of the sentence and starting again. When our readers are making errors constantly in that sentence, in that paragraph, it's a good practice to say, okay, now that you've figured out the meaning of the word, let's go back and let's read that again to make sure that they are comprehending what they read as well as decoding. Skip over a word and continue reading until the end of the sentence. I love that strategy. When we skip over that word and we continue reading, the students can take the clues that surround the word to figure out what that word actually was, and they can problem solve to figure it out. That's a good strategy as well. I see a comment that the PowerPoint has stopped. Has the PowerPoint continued? I want to make sure I'm checking in with you guys. Tara, has the PowerPoint stopped for you?
Yes, it has, Dana.
Okay, what screen do you see, Tara?
Right now I see use visual cues. Is that the right one?
Yes, ma'am. Use visual cues. I want to make sure that we are we're moving forward. So, okay. Do you
Excuse
want to
me.
continue with visual cues, Tara?
Okay, let me see if it'll work for me. Hopefully everyone can see now. Oh, they said yes, it's back.
It's
Good.
back. It's back. Thank you.
Can you hear?
So,
Yes.
yes. Yes.
Sorry, there was one other thing too. I noticed when the slide like stopped, you can actually it's letting me swipe to the next slide myself if I just run my finger across the screen. Just kind of an FYI if it's not working for anybody else when you click it over.
I think it does do that. I think that's for the individual. I'm not sure if everyone can go
Right.
forward or if you're just seeing it on your screen. I believe that's how that works.
I think it depends on the version of Teams that you have as well.
That may, yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
true.
that's probably true. Thank you though for letting us know.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're talking about these visual cues because, and the reason we're talking about this, a lot of times students do struggle with when they don't know a word. And sometimes, and what we really do not want is when a student gets to a word they don't know, we don't want them to just stop and give up and don't try anything. And we also don't want them to just say anything without really thinking about if it makes sense, if it looks right or anything like that. We want them to really think about it, try to figure it out. And so that's what these strategies are designed to do. So if you use visual cues, you first look at the letters of the word and you say the first sound. Usually they can get that part. So something that starts with a B started climbing the tree. What starts with a B and climbs trees? And so then that's what they need to think about. And then also now we're kind of covering up the rest of the letters, but the other letters that are in the word might also help the student figure out the word because maybe they know about some of those letters as well. Okay. Do you see a part of a word or a chunk that you already know? This is another strategy that we have students use. So let's say the word is playground and they know the word play. They can also think about the part of the word they know. Let's say the word is jumping and they know jump. And so sometimes I'll have a student take their finger and cover up the ending because endings really throw kids off. It makes the word just look like a totally different word to some kids. So I have them cover up that ing with with a finger and then say the word, and usually they can get the jump. And then when I say, okay, move your finger, what's that? And they'll say ing, and I'll tell them put it together, and then they get it, jumping. The same thing with pre-test. They might know the word test. And then if you cover up that PRE part, they might say, oh, I know that word test. Then I'll move the finger or a piece of paper or something, and then they can usually go ahead and get pre-test. Especially once we get to third grade, because we start teaching affixes, which are prefixes and suffixes. We start teaching them about those things actually in first grade. They start learning the most common ones like ing, ed, and s. They start learning those. They learn about un, re. So the most common ones they start in first grade, and then we just progress through the grade. So by the time they get to third grade, they've been exposed to quite a few word parts. Oh, let me go back. Those were examples of covering up parts of words so that students could see the chunk that they do know, and then you uncover it, and a lot of times that does fix the problem. Okay, so related to talking, so meaning, does that sound right? So when they do say a word, does that sound right? And then sometimes even having the student reread the entire sentence, because a lot of times out of context, it really doesn't mean as much as it does when you put that word back into context and you reread that complete sentence. So can you point to the word that sounded wrong when they're reading? And then you read blank, whatever the word is that how we say it? So sometimes they'll say things like looked it. So if the word is looked and it has that ed, they'll say looked it. or something. And so this is a good time to say, you read looked it. Is that how we say it? We say looked. And so just bringing these things to their attention is what we call being explicit with students. And sometimes they just need us to call things to their attention so that the next time they encounter either that word or a word that works in a similar way, that they're able to problem solve themselves on their own, because that's the goal. The goal is to help our students and support them as they're learning and growing in their understanding of how print and text works. But then our goal is to get them to be to the point where they're much more independent and they can do it on their own without the help of an adult or a more skilled reader. And then also taking care of our students. So there are a growing number of students who have what we would call test anxiety. They get anxious when it's test time. They know it's big because we kind of change everything we do on test day. We have an additional person in the room, the proctor. The whole school kind of shuts down and goes on in testing mode, and everyone has to be still and quiet. No resources can take place. Nothing can happen. No announcements can happen. Like the school shuts down for a period of time during the testing window, the hours of testing. We generally test in the morning unless we're doing makeups. And so students know ooh, this is okay, this is big. And then they start really thinking about it and internalizing it. So what we try to do here is lessen their anxiety. As you can see, number 1 and number 2 have a star by them. So these are really key points that we want to bring out. So try not to put too much pressure on your student. Reinforce it as long as they have worked hard, they're prepared. They've been working not just this year, but they've been actually working since they started their school career way back in pre-K or kindergarten, or possibly even preschool. Like everything, every single academic interaction they've had is coming kind of to fruition at this moment. So they've had so much learning and information even before they got to school. All the things they learned at home from their family comes into play and is important, because that is connected to their background knowledge, and they're going to need that for this assessment as well. So just make sure you let them know that you're confident in them, that you know that they're going to do their best, and you know that they're prepared to do their best. Because really, at the end of the day, all we can really ask of our students is that they do their best. How can they do any more than their best? So that's what we really want. And we want them to feel valued within in themselves. We want them to feel valued and important. And then have the child visualize success. So visualizing is a very powerful strategy that they use in lots of situations, more than just the educational situation. Even in different types of counseling, they use visualization. Have them visualizing the test day, them being calm and prepared, and them being ready to read their text and answer questions. Encourage them to rehearse what that might feel like to get a good score on their test, and how proud they would be of themselves. Work with them on focused breathing. This is something that I know we've been doing a lot. A lot of schools use calm classroom routines and structures. And so a lot of that has to do with breathing and just being very self-aware and being mindful. And so this is really helpful for students to kind of alleviate some stress. So stress is often caused by insufficient oxygen to the brain, and then work with your student to take time before the test begins to take a number of deep cleansing breaths. They take a breath in, maybe for a count of 5. They might hold that breath for a count of 5, and then they slowly let that breath out for a count of 5. And so give them that strategy. They can practice that quietly and all to themselves, and no one even has to know that they're doing it. But focused breathing is a tried and true technique, but it does take practice. So make sure you do that with them, and that should help them quite a bit. Nana, do you want to say anything about either one of those?
I will add self-care. I'm a big believer of self-care and just allowing the student maybe to pick something that they would like to do that calms them, and just owning their own mental state. So if there's something that they know that they really like, I know some students like to watch movies, they may like to go bike riding, any form of outside will also help students with test anxiety. And I also want to add their diet. Greasy, heavy foods, starchy foods. You guys need the slow foods. The slow foods. Let's try to stay away from those as much as possible when they have something that they need their mental sharpness for. And load the kiddos up with go foods such as apples, some like broccoli, rice, lean meats. Those food types are research based to help students function and focus and promote healthy brain activity when they're in school.
Oh, thank you, Nina. Those were great additions. I do know that a lot of times when we have those carbs, those quick carbs, you get that kind of burst of energy, but then you kind of crash just as hard and just as fast. So those are good suggestions about self-care. Also, encourage your child to review the night before the test, but not in a way that's like cramming or something. Maybe something a little more relaxing, like just reading a favorite book and just talking about it. Because remember, you know, reading is comprehending. And so if they're reading something, you're already thinking, your brain can't help it. It's going to do what it does, and it's going to activate and start thinking. So something like that is helpful. A longer, more systematic schedule of short reviews can prepare students. So like it says, not in a cramming type way. Also, all along, your child's teacher is going to be preparing them. It is possible that they will send home material to help students review. Some teachers do that. And if they do, just make sure they're doing it kind of all along in a gradual kind of way where it doesn't feel overwhelming to you or your student. Like, try not to let things like that build up, because that will cause a stressful feeling to happen. Try to use positive language when talking about expectations for the test. So not to overinflate students' expectations, but also try to avoid like negative words like you're going to fail this test if you don't study, those kind of things. Or, if you don't study, you're not going to pass this test. So we want to use that positive dialogue with them, because they will internalize what we say. What we think about them, the adults in their lives, is important to students, and they do internalize it, whether they verbalize it out loud or not. So we want to make sure that we're filling them, and we're filling their bank, if you will, with positive thoughts and affirmations even. Plan for a fun item, a fun outing, yes, or treat for your child after the test has been completed. So what we or families, what is a really good thing to do for students is to reward them for their effort. You won't know the results of the assessment for a while. It takes a while to get those results back. But however, we can definitely praise them and reward them for all of their efforts, for trying really hard, for working over a long period of time throughout the school year up until that point to be prepared, listening to their teacher, those kind of things. Just trying really hard, even when they're at home with you and you see them trying hard. We want to praise them for those efforts, because that makes a big difference. That's a part of having a growth mindset. And it does make an extreme difference between people who kind of persevere and keep going because they have this kind of perseverance attitude, and people who say, whoa, I can't do this, and now I shut down. So we want to praise their effort. A lot of times, and I've even been guilty of this as a parent and grandparent. Oh, he's so smart or she's so smart. Well, smart is good, but what happens when students feel like they're smart and they encounter something that challenges them and that is quote unquote hard, a lot of times they'll internalize that as, oh, I must not be smart. But just because something's hard doesn't mean you're smart, but that's how they internalize it. So if we praise their effort, oh, you really stuck with that. You didn't just give up. You just didn't let that beat you and stop you. You kept working at it, and look what happened. Because you worked at it, you were able to figure it out. You were able to get past that challenge or that hurdle. So that's what we're talking about when we say praising their effort. Keeping a positive attitude about testing in general around your child. So any test, not just this test, but any test. And emphasize their ability to demonstrate what they have learned rather than the consequences of not passing. So we don't want to say to them, well, you know, if you don't get score at least a level 2 in that FSA, you know you're going to just repeat 3rd grade. You know, we don't want to overemphasize that. I mean, that is the facts and reality. However, what we want to focus on when I work with students, I focus on, hey, we're going to get to this. We're going to shoot. I try to have them shoot higher. I really don't have them shoot for a 2. I really want them shooting for like a 3 or higher, because 3 is what we call, you know, in the education teacher world, we call that proficiency. So I'm shooting for that 3. However, if we get to the 2, I know that they, you know, kind of made it over the hurdle. But students know, they usually know the kind of lingo and numbers associated with FSA, because we do talk to it about them, but we just don't want to overemphasize it. The reason we want them to achieve a particular level or point is because we know that if they do, that they have some basic foundational skills that are going to help them in life. So it's really more about that than just scoring that level because they are going to pass or fail, or, you know, be promoted or not promoted. It's not as much about that as the fact that they will be stronger, more proficient readers if we can get them to that point. So it's really about that. Okay. And then we also want you to know, and I think we do have a link maybe to some of this in the chat, but there's also information on Duval County's website, and that's just duvalschools.org. That's the website. And I think there's a link possibly. If not, we can put it there in the chat for you, a direct link to this page. But there are some things about the 3rd grade promotion. It is a state statute. It's the state of Florida, not just Duval County, but all counties. And there's information on there. You would go to departments, like it says on arrow number 1. Let me see if I can get my cursor. Can you see my cursor? My pointer? Uh-oh. Let me go back. Okay, I guess we can. Okay, I thought I clicked it. Let's see. My highlighter is not working. Okay. All right. So if you could follow it's not working. The first arrow is at the top of the page, right in the middle, and it's pointing to the word department. So if you go to duvalschools.org, you want to click on departments first. That's number 1, step 1. Step number 2, as you see on your screen, is over to the left at the top. That arrow is pointing to the words academic services. If you click on that word, it'll open up a drop-down menu, and you are going to go zoop down here to arrow number 3, where it says 3rd grade promotion, because even the language here is presented in a positive way. 3rd grade promotion, because that is what we really want for our students in as much as possible. We want them to be able to be promoted. So it's even worded positive right here in what we call this document. And then if you go zoop over here to the right of your screen, it says critical information for parents of 3rd graders. And so that's how you would navigate to that information on Duval County. I'm sorry, duvalschools.org, which is our standard regular website. And then here's some additional parent resources. I'm not sure if this link was in the chat. However, you would do the same thing. You're still going to be in departments, and let's look at arrow number 1. It says academic services again, but this time instead of dropping down to 3rd grade promotion, we're going to drop down to parent resources in arrow number 2. Drop down to number 3, and it says just take 20. And then number 4 says, just read families. These are just promotions to get families to get more involved with reading to and with their students. Sometimes you can read to your student, like almost in the form of a bedtime story. It just doesn't have to be at bedtime though, but almost in that form. And or you all could just be sitting in the room reading. Now, I know we kind of don't tend to do that as much. We tend to be on our devices, usually in the same room. However, there's nothing to say that there aren't great ebooks that your student could possibly be looking interested in, or graphic novels or other content that your student is interested in as far as reading text on their device, whether it be a cell phone or a tablet. For me, when my kids were coming through school, I really cared about if they were reading. I didn't care that much if my son in particular, if he was reading graphic novels or if he was reading, he calls it manga. I was like, hey, go ahead and read your manga. It has something to do with Japanese stories or something like that. So I knew what it was, so I wanted to make sure it was appropriate content, but I wanted him to be reading. I knew that if he was reading, he was thinking about what he's reading critically, and I knew that reading, the more he reads, the higher his fluency, comprehension, and understanding of vocabulary. He's going to gain, his vocabulary is going to increase just because you're reading more. So I knew that was important. And we have really said a lot to you guys, and we appreciate your attention and you joining us. Are there any questions? You can either unmute your mic or you can just type it in the chat if you do have questions. Again, we appreciate your time. We know that your time is valuable. We don't take it lightly that you took time out of your busy schedule and your day and your evening routines to join us. We want you to know that your child's school and your child's teacher are one of your greatest resources. They are with your child in most cases 5 days a week for many hours, 6+ hours a day. Please don't hesitate to reach out to your child's school, your child's teacher. Please don't hesitate to request a conference if you would like more information, or if you think of questions later, because maybe they're just not coming to you right now. I also want to bring your attention to the chat. There is a Qualtrics survey in the chat. We value your feedback. If you could please just take a few moments to fill out this survey, we would greatly appreciate it. We do read your comments and we do adapt how we make presentations accordingly based on what you say about this presentation and possibly future presentations. Again, we just want to thank you. We appreciate you so much, and we believe in your student. We know that they're going to do well. Nana? Any final thoughts?
There is one thing. Can you go back to, I believe it's the 24th slide? I just want to reiterate that all the information that we covered is on that academic services page for 3rd grade. Everything we discussed, from the exemptions, which are very important for our students, to the demands from the state. And I even saw, Tara, when you were on that page, they had provided that information in English and in Spanish. And that is all. I do thank you guys as well for your time. And like Tara stated, we believe in your students. They can do it. Just what they're learning now, and the things that they've been through these past 2 years, learning virtually, learning hybrid, to returning fully into the classroom. And every day we see our students grab hold of better concepts, better ideas, better advancements, and we're so proud of the work that they're doing in the midst of a pandemic. We are proud of them every single day.
Thank you, everyone. Remember, fill out that evaluation that's in the chat. And when you do that, we will just bid you a great and amazing night. Also, a great and amazing holiday time, winter break and everything. And we know, like we said, that in the spring, FSA, as they're preparing all along, will not be a problem.